So, and action. Hi everyone, I'm Rob from Think Greener.
Hi, Arlen Stewas, independent resilience consultant.
Yeah, and thank you, Arlen, for the pleasure of meeting with Think Greener today. It is April 16th, and it is a Friday. A beautiful day today, early in the morning. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about some solutions that Arlen's been working with to help reverse climate change around the world, because right now we are in Berlin, Germany.
Awesome.
So Arlen, what are some of your passions that you've worked on to help reverse climate change?
Well, I think my passion stems a little bit from my background, Rob. So when I was a kid, first off, I was born in Miami, Florida, and we moved to Western Massachusetts when I was a bit older. But back in the early 1990s, Hurricane Andrew had hit the south of Florida.
Sure.
And that was an enormous hurricane that completely destroyed Homestead, Florida. And long story short, I remember returning there as a kid and watching my neighborhood that I lived in totally dismantled. I was literally walking around, giving stray dogs water, seeing family photos on the ground. It was a really sort of heartfelt experience, even as a child. And so I kind of kept that inside, and as I started getting older, I developed a career in architecture. And so I've worked in architecture for about 10 to 11 years, and within that I've found that there's opportunities to create resilient design strategies that can sort of combat climate change and develop mitigation strategies that allow us to think differently about how we build and how we live. Especially with the changing from warming temperatures to rising oceans to water scarcity to just thinking of energy, systems thinking. And so I've been very fortunate to have had a lot of research experiences that have allowed me to travel around different parts of the world.
Yeah, you were saying that like 28 different countries or something maybe like that?
Yes, some of them were vacation, which was really great, but many of them actually were very research focused. So I was lucky to receive a number of independent grants that allowed me to conduct sort of on the ground research, very similar to what you're doing, Rob, with these companies that are actually doing the work. So for example, I lived in the Netherlands for about a month and a half.
Which where Think Greener is heading to the Netherlands now.
Awesome.
Right after Berlin, we're going to go over to Brussels and then over to the Netherlands, Belgium. And
so what I found is how the Dutch are dealing with water and what they've done over the last 500 years of dealing with water. And it's really impressive in what a small country, which is twice the size of New Jersey, has been able to do to sort of sustain life under sea level. And so from that experience, I also lived in Bangladesh, which is sort of ground zero for a lot of the climate challenges, especially human migration from extreme storm surge events, and a growing sort of larger number of homelessness, especially in the capital city of Dhaka. And so this research, this parallel exchange, really opened my eyes, right? And it sort of stems deep within to develop a passion for the subject. And so after visiting a country that is quite small but has resources to deal with it and deal with water issues, and then going to a country that's a little bit larger but that doesn't have the resources to deal with it, it was pretty eye-opening, right? In 1953, there was a major flood that hit the southwest part of Holland, and it killed about 1,800 people.
Wow.
And since that moment, the Dutch said, we're never going to let this happen again. But in the mid-1980s in Bangladesh, there was an enormous cyclone that killed almost 500,000 people. Yet still today, there still isn't any mitigation strategy other than human migration away from the coast.
Right. So, and I know you're going to get to this, but this is all tying into climate change now, where the weather patterns, they're not getting better. They're changing rapidly for good and for bad. And the storms are becoming more frequent, more intensive. And the word resiliency now is almost like the new word, the new buzzword. back when green was the new buzzword, when they thought it was the color green, but us as architects and construction managers and designers, we knew what it meant. It meant, you know, sustainable design. And what is a sustainable design? And achieving net zero, and always constantly raising the bar. So yeah, this is where we're going, towards resiliency. And both Arlen and I had a big part of that within our previous companies that we've worked with. So look forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah. Just to kind of jump into it, it really kind of blew my mind at, you know, how these variations of loss of human life, right? You know, it's almost putting a value on human life, right? Like, well, so many people died from these storms in Bangladesh, and they're becoming more frequent, and not as many people died in the Netherlands, for example, and what they've been able to accomplish, right? Some of the engineering wonders of the world were developed in the Netherlands.
Yes.
You know, Oosterschelde-Kering is a dam that's about 2.5 miles long, protecting a very significant part of Rotterdam, which is the largest port in Europe.
Right.
You know, so in Bangladesh, they're really kind of the population is growing at a point where it's kind of out of control, and education is really kind of the key to developing the strategies in a way. But you know, I think that was really kind of the you know, that's where I kind of developed my heart for this topic.
Sure.
And since then, I've been involved with a number of projects in a number of cities across the United States, but also in Europe, developing and working with government officials to develop these climate action plans.
Right.
So from, you know, to me, a big win is working with the community and developing a project that is sort of deep rooted within that community. So it's one thing for an architect or a developer or, you know, an independent contractor to go in and develop a project and then walk away from it and make a lot of money. That's sort of that's actually
the first cost
common
approach, where they don't care about anything but the money, the bottom line.
Yeah.
And we're trying to build in a triple bottom line where.
Yeah. And so the way I look at it and how I've been impressed with a lot of the research that I've done is some of these cities are actually, you know, they almost plant city officials within the neighborhoods first, and those city officials live there for about 4 or 5 years, get to know the neighborhood, get to know the people of the neighborhood, go to the local coffee shops, go to the restaurants, walk around the parks, live there. You get to understand it. And then through that process of time and getting to know the neighborhood, they develop projects that actually are owned by the neighborhood. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's
the neighborhood has the voice and the input. We're connected, and you're hearing an equal voice, right? You're not hearing one person's voice as to what gets built, where it gets built, and why it gets built. It's more of the community's voice being heard to design the community for their needs and their actions, right?
Exactly. So obviously not every project has that amount of resource to develop, but I think that's a real sustainable mindset when developing a project.
Yes.
Which is, you know, after we finish the project, it's yours, and we're giving it away, and it's something that's used by the local community. So a lot of that level of thinking actually happens in Copenhagen. I'm not sure of the level of thinking if that happens in Germany, but I would imagine so. Various parts are very sort of community driven.
Yes.
You know, one thing I think is really fantastic, Rob, is the neighborhood that we're in right now.
Yeah.
And in various neighborhoods in Berlin, it's called a 15-minute neighborhood, and that means that everything you possibly could need is within a 15-minute walk.
Beautiful.
So that's your grocery store, that's your pharmacy, that's you know, if you are if you need to go to a hospital or some type of doctor's office, a dentist, basically everything is within a 15-minute walk. That also includes major public transportation lines.
Sure. We passed this beautiful train station that's under construction. Now a lot of the city, the neighborhood here is under construction, but it was absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
The architecture and the design in that and the thought, you could just see it. It's a really nice master plan. I saw it driving the camper van on the way over here. So. But Arlen had also shared with me a book about the neighborhood here, which was really interesting to see it in plan.
Yeah, and so I think what I'm impressed by is that the point of this 15-minute neighborhood is to get people out of vehicles, right?
Yes.
It's to get people to walk more, it's to get people to cycle more, and it's to get people out of this mindset of I need to get in my car and drive from point A to point B.
Right, and let's maybe stop there to talk a little bit about why you would want to get people out of their cars, right? And the big thing that comes to me is, the CO2 emissions. And it's not just about that, but I do want to touch on that because we need to, I think we all know now, to reduce our carbon emissions. And there's this big thing now, what's your carbon footprint? And if this is your first time hearing about that, there's websites out there that you could Google it and crunch your carbon footprint very quickly. And it's something to help track, to understand what your consumption is of fossil fuels and combustion of CO2 into the atmosphere. But another one of the living communities that Arlen's talking about, walkable communities, is gets people out into the outdoors where they can, first off, their health benefits. They get to interact with their neighborhoods. The neighborhoods become safer. People purchase things from where they live now, and they don't go to the big box mall and get in their car and drive 8 miles to the mall. They may walk to the street around the corner and buy their groceries there. And
it's also, you're living healthier because you're eating fresher, right? You're not buying in bulk. You're not buying sort of this enormous stock. It's a process of, okay, I'm going to go to my grocery store maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and that's okay. And I'm eating fresh produce because of that, right?
I love this conversation because I see it like touching all these great points that helping to reverse climate change is a part of. And you were talking about waste. And another big one is zero waste. So I know back where we shopped in Jersey City, there was a store that we would go to, and we would bring our own mason jars, and we would fill up our grain or whatever, our rice, whatever we needed, and there was no packaging there. And it sounds a lot like what you're talking about here.
Absolutely. I having moved here in July, I've noticed Germany has one of the most impressive recycling systems in the world. And the reason is because of how serious they take it.
Mm-hmm.
People know from an early age on how to recycle properly. Mm-hmm. Everything is recyclable. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that you throw away. Mm-hmm. And they recycle plastic and paper, cardboard. They recycle glass, compost.
Food scraps?
Yes.
Yep.
So that's all within the building.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So in this apartment, there are sort of compartments for these things, mm-hmm. and that's really fantastic, right?
Yes,
it's getting people to think about what they're doing with their stuff, and it's really impressive. Rob, I know you mentioned that you're kind of continuing this path along Europe, and one place that I'm not sure if it's on your docket, but it's called Hammarby in Stockholm. Mm-hmm. And essentially, they have a trash problem. The problem is that their recycling system is so efficient that there are independent consultants traveling to different parts of Asia to literally buy trash from parts of India and parts of Bangladesh because they need it to power their public transportation. Oh. So they literally see it as black gold.
Wow.
And that's what they're using. So they have these biogas buses that are powered by biogas, that's powered within the city.
Wow!
And it's because of their system is so efficient. They don't have enough. They don't have enough of this recycling to convert it to the biogas.
That's a great concept. I'm not aware of that city, but I'm going to put it on my list.
Yeah. So it's a neighborhood within Stockholm.
Okay.
And so essentially, what they've done is they've removed the concept of a garbage truck going through the neighborhood. Because what they have these, they're almost like these tubes that are sticking out of the ground, and each tube is a different color. And so you take your waste, whatever it is, whatever form,
category,
and you put it into the tube, and that gets sucked down underneath the street and sucked into this kind of bigger
digester.
Yeah, it's literally a digester.
Yeah, Sure.
And they're taking that waste and they're converting it into energy to power their public transportation system.
Got goosebumps.
Right?
That's good.
It's really incredible.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to connect you with some folks.
Yeah.
If you end up making it in that direction.
Yeah, and you know, this is a very organic conversation that we're having here, as you could probably tell. But that's the beauty of it, is that we're all interconnected. And you know, Arlen's going to connect me with some people, and I have a good friend, Monica, who connected me with Arlen back in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And that's how it all works. And you mentioned something about the community level. There's like 4 engagements of action, and the first one is you know, I think we need to strive to touch all 4, but you may not be able to. But typically, your first one is your friends and family. Talk to them about sustainability. Talk to them about recycling. Talk to them about something that you may know that they don't know, so that they can then talk to their friends, right? And then the second one is your community level. You know, get out there, talk to your community. And then the third would be go out there and talk to your congressman. And the fourth would be to implement a solution within your community. And I think I may have mixed those up, 3 and 4.
Sure.
But that's the basic principle, is that we need to get out there at all different levels of action, and whatever your passion is or level of expertise will depend on what you can contribute back. But that's where it is. It's all interconnected. And just like you passing on new techniques and new solutions for me to go to shine the spotlight on them, because it's not about Arlen, it's not about me. It's about all of us coming together to share these solutions, and it's not one solution that's going to reverse climate change. It's going to take many solutions to do that, and there's solutions that aren't even invented yet with R&D that's being discovered now that are going to help contribute to this even further.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you touch on some really interesting points, and you know, we all have to sort of become these agents of change.
Yes.
Even sometimes we need to find ways to empower others. And actually, we need to find ways to empower others. Sometimes we're not our own best messengers, right? And you know, so for us to relate to communities, sometimes it's inspiring those that are in those communities, and giving them the tools and the resources to grow and to prosper, to be able to accomplish those goals, right?
Yeah. So just want to ask you maybe one last question here. What's the next thing that you're going to be working on towards helping to reverse climate change?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah. And I don't know the answer.
Yeah. You know, to be honest, Rob, I'm in the process of setting up my own company.
Okay.
And the company is going to be research and planning focused. And part of the research is similar to some of the research that you're doing, which is kind of collecting these stories and these narratives and compartmentalizing them in a way that you know, appeals to architects and urban designers and people who are in the built environment or the construction industry.
Sure.
So that's one part of it, and then the other part is actually finding ways to work with communities to you know, develop these climate action plans.
Yes.
So, for example, I think I was really thankful to work on this one project in St. Petersburg, Florida. It was actually through the Urban Land Institute.
Okay.
But we were working with the city of St. Petersburg, and we developed just sort of some generic goals of sustainability, but we really target them towards the community. So St. Petersburg, Florida has some enormous social equity challenges, and they also have a sea level rise challenge.
Yes.
And so what we did was, through this plan, we presented this plan to the city, and they bought into it, and then they ended up hiring somebody with a sustainability background to be their city planner of resilience.
Wonderful.
And so for me, that's probably the biggest impact I could have is, you know, I went to this area that wasn't really having these types of conversations, and we created an argument for why they should do this. And they developed an opportunity to create a staff position within the city to implement some of these big picture concepts.
Right.
And so now that that's moving forward, right? It's these little seeds.
It is.
That sometimes we don't think they're really going to go anywhere, but they actually do. Like this conversation, for example, we don't know where it's going to go.
No.
But we have a good feeling that there will be future collaborations, future connections, and I think that that's the type of thing that needs to happen.
It is, and you touched on great topics, Arlen, and I wish you all the best in those adventures coming forward. And not knowing what's ahead is exciting.
Yeah.
Living in the future, living in the now, following your passion. I think that's what Arlen and I share together. We share quite a bit, just talking, hearing each other of some past experiences. And, I really look forward to the next 4 years with our new administration. There's a lot of stimulus money coming in, supporting infrastructure, resiliency, equity, the word just, equal level playing field for people, for all of humanity. So everyone's voices are heard, and everyone's rights are, equal. No one's greater than the other person, and I think that the direction of our country, the United States, can help the rest of the world continue to try to reverse climate change, and it's one conversation at a time like this. So I'm going to end it here. Arlen, did you have any closing comments that you may want to say?
No, I just think that one thing that I kind of live by is that we may think we have the solution today, but tomorrow it could be entirely different.
Yes.
And so if we never test these ideas,
Yes.
we'll never know.
Yes.
And so I applaud a lot of these European cities
Yes.
for testing ideas and not just talking about it, but testing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you test it and it works,
Mm-hmm.
it could be amazing what it could do for other neighborhoods and other
That's
districts,
right.
other projects.
Continue to learn and evolve. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you, Arlen. Yeah. So remember, think greener.